privacy, advertising, social media, a mega panel discussion. This is MacVoices. This edition of MacVoices is supported by TextExpander by Smile, the makers of world-class software. Visit textexpander.com/podcast to learn more and download your free demo. Welcome to MacVoices Live. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we do this every Tuesday night. We're glad you're with us if you are here with us live, and if not, if you work or if you're in a different time zone that this just doesn't work for, we put the show in the feeds so that you can enjoy it too, but we'd love to have you come by. We do it live on Facebook, on the MacVoices page, and also on YouTube on the MacVoices TV page. So you can go there, join us, throw some comments in the chat rooms, and basically harass us from there. The topic for tonight is kind of a mishmash of privacy and security and safety and who's got your data and how did they get it and should they have it and all those kind of things. This, I have to say, this has been covered by Kelly and Andrew on the Mac Observer's Daily Observations. This has been covered by Ken Ray quite a bit. It's been covered by a lot of people. And so I've got some thoughts on it. I'm sure this group has some thoughts on it. So we're going to go around the table first to let everybody find out who's here, and then we will take it from there. So taking my screen, as always, Mr. Dave Ginsburg is up first. David, good to have you.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me, and looking forward to this interesting conversation. And I changed, and I got a different camera too.
You do, yes. You look. Your tones are tonier.
Yeah,
something.
Something like that.
I don't know what that means, but
camo on the iPhone.
Andrew Orr is here, and he's got his lights turned on. Even Andrew.
Hey Chuck, I have received the bat signal.
Cool. Great. If that's what it takes, I will send it more often. Mr. Jeff Gamet has joined us, and Jeff was attacked by a mountain lion earlier and has a new look.
You should see the mountain lion.
Yeah, I'm sure. Good to have you, Jeff.
It's always great to be here.
Mr. Mark Fuccio, expressing no opinions whatsoever with his background, is here. Mark, good to have you.
Chuck, as always, it's a pleasure to be with you.
Warren Sklar has joined us for the first time in a long time. Warren, it's good to have you back.
I've been snowed in for 2 days, and I'm kind of losing my mind, so I need something.
So you showed up here.
So, down to our level. Welcome,
yeah.
Warren.
Thank you.
Maybe I'll get out tomorrow. We'll see how it goes.
If not, think what he'll be like by next week, folks. Jim Ray is back. He can't get enough of this crew. Jim, it's good to have you. Thanks for being here.
It's fun crew.
It is. It is. Speaking of fun, Kelly Gamad is here. Kelly, good to have you.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm always excited to come, and especially when we get people who don't show up very often. Apparently, the bat signal was we're trying to take Andrew to music school, and so here I am.
Well, yeah, that's the after show, right? That's the after show. Last but absolutely not least, the guy who is trying to fix his mic, Mr. Guy Searle.
Can you hear me?
That sounds more like you, Guy.
Okay, thank goodness. All right, got it fixed. Got it all sorted out, as they say. How is everything tonight? So we're talking about Halloween candy. I'm so glad that that's the topic tonight.
Jeez. Oh, boy. Here we go. So I'm going to start off, and then I'm going to turn you guys loose. But the little battle of words between Facebook and Apple escalated a bit last week. And I guess the way that the thing that gets me about some of Facebook's positions, and this is not a pro Apple thing necessarily. This is just a comment on what's going on. But Facebook acts like they are entitled to our information. And this is something I've seen in the business world, completely absent the tech, that always aggravates me when somebody says, you walk into a presentation, and they say, we deserve a share of your wallet. We deserve our share of your business. And right away, my hackles go up. It's like, no, you don't. You have to earn it. just like I had to earn it and just like everybody else has to earn it. You don't deserve it. Facebook has been doing things and apologizing for them for a long time. And now they're acting like, well, gee, somebody's restricting us. In this case, Apple with their AT&T and ATT initiative, excuse me, not the phone company. And it's like, well, you're killing our business. And it's like, well, you guys kind of built the business in a way you shouldn't have anyway. So what's the big deal? Now, before somebody says it, because some of these discussions were had in previous MacVoices too, that, we are all Apple fans to one degree or another. And so therefore we're defending Apple. And I don't feel like that. I feel like, yes, Apple's stance on privacy definitely plays into Apple. But that's not a zero-sum game. That's not a bad thing. So if I'm pro-privacy, then I can be pro-Apple. If I'm pro-Apple, I can be pro-privacy. I can't be pro-privacy and be pro-Facebook. And that's kind of, I guess, boils it down. So that's my little introduction. We got a lot of ground to cover in a lot of different angles. So let's see. Mark, since you came with such an obvious opinion here, I want to lead off with you. What's your take on all this?
I agree with what you're saying, that Facebook acts like it's entitled to do all the snooping and other invasive practices that they have used to really gather an enormous amount of information. And I admit at one time I was a Facebook shareholder, but I liquidated my last position about 2 years ago. So I have no current interest in the stock. I have used or have had client companies who've used what Facebook offers, and it's truly amazing how much that they have learned and how much information they have amassed about people. And they've done it by polluting the internet with all their like buttons and things. And, they've just been really dastardly clever in terms of putting invisible iframes over web pages so that when you just see something, you click on it, boom, right away, they get a signal and they get information back to them. So, for many years, Facebook's had, just a gigantic data gathering operation, as has Google. But I think with Google, it seems to me it's a little bit qualitatively different. A lot of what Google's doing is all related to what they learn through search or your use of their other services. So at one level, I think we all understand we're making a trade-off of we'll share a little bit of information about us, ourselves with Google in return for use of free services. But, Facebook has amped it up and is just so gosh darn invasive that I think they are realizing that if Apple in their ATT initiative, it could really damage what they're doing. And again, I think, they're out there and they're taking, what seems to me just, very insincere approach of trying to justify it. Oh, we're here trying to do this, to benefit small businesses. And that is horsepucky because this is a G-rated show. That's just horsepucky. And yes, so that's where they are. So, I think, they've certainly gotten a lot of data about people, and if people want to use their services, fine. If not, I think this is going to be a very interesting year as this discussion and debate between these two corporate giants unfold.
Andrew, I want to jump to you because you do Security Friday on TDO. So you're really, this is sort of your beat. And I'm anxious to hear, what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, I think there are definitely differences between the two, as Mark was pointing out. When we talk about privacy, what we're really talking about is advertising. These companies are collecting our data and selling access to it to third parties, often without our consent, which is the recent fight between Apple and Facebook. But in my opinion, there is a difference between Facebook and Google. Google is in the ad business, but they do also give us services like Gmail and YouTube and Google Drive and Google Docs and et cetera, et cetera. Whereas Facebook, maybe in the beginning, having a social media site was good because I believed their kind of statement when they said, we are trying to connect the world. And maybe that really was true in the beginning, but now we actually do have evidence that that's kind of not their main purpose anymore. We've had news where they're experimenting on us via the psychological things that they do with our newsfeed to, try to figure out what happens on our news feed and how that affects our emotions, and maybe they can exploit that. And the news about Cambridge Analytica, where all of our data is being tied to political affiliations. And so at this point, I think Facebook, I don't think they really do a lot of good anymore.
Okay. Yeah.
I just want to jump in really quick and point out that, but my stance on it is like people try to put Apple and Facebook in the same sentence a lot, and they don't belong in the same sentence. They're not, like, if you want to talk about tech companies that make a lot of money, okay, but their business models aren't the same. What they're in it for is not the same. What it is they want out of people is not the same. And like the part that I find frustrating is, like Andrew said, Facebook has been bad at handling people's data for so long. And it's not like, oops, we kept it on this one particular server that didn't have a password, or the password was admin, or, it's not like somebody actively got in and got a hold of a bunch of stuff they weren't supposed to have. Facebook was giving it to people. And that's a very different thing than, oh, we got hacked, oh goodness gracious me, because that's never the thing that happened. Like Cambridge Analytica had all that data from Facebook because Facebook gave it to them, and Gmail has Google has the information that it has about everybody because people give it to them. And and part of the reason I think that this is getting the attention it is, I hope, is for the same reason Andrew and I talk about it all the time, which is that we want people to be informed. We want people to know. We want people to understand what it is they're doing when they are very meticulous about checking in on Facebook every place they go, and very meticulous about all of these, making sure Facebook has all my information so everybody knows what I'm up to and what I'm doing and what a fabulous life I'm leading. Like, that's how Facebook makes their money. And it's just, I think it's really useful to have that conversation a bunch. And Warren raised his hand, so I'm going to stop now.
Okay, so Warren, since you raised your hand,
I just have to say it, and it's going to be quick. But what is the data that everybody's so worried that Facebook and Google is giving out? Because they're not giving out passwords or credit card numbers. They're not giving out, like, they're not, if I was cheating on a spouse, they're not telling the other person what's going on. If you do something criminal, then any company gets a warrant, including Apple, will give you that information.
Yeah.
So what is it? What is it that we're so scared and worried about? Maybe our phone number, which anybody could get, things we like. Who cares? I'd rather be presented with advertisements of things I like than things I don't like, if it's going to happen anyways. So that's my question. What are we so worried about?
Well, I think that's, Warren, I think that's a good, that's looking at it in a positive sense. I think that's the sense in which, Facebook and Zuckerberg et al. Are trying to offer this. But as Andrew was saying, there is a negative downside because of the amount and volume of information that they have on people. They can use
like
it
what?
to, we're talking about the whole Cambridge Analytica and the use to really highly target political messages. And I don't want to get into a political debate, pro or con, but the ability to do that on a mass scale is brand new and completely unprecedented. So
people, the users are doing that more than anybody else is, manipulating that. People out there are spewing out their own political nonsense rather than companies doing that.
I don't know. I mean, you may be right, but I tend to think that there's a lot of things that show in a lot of networks that for every person, that only a couple of percent, 1%, 2%, 3% are actively posting, and a lot of people are just silent and observers. But still, as you're going out and you're cruising the web and you're visiting different sites, or you click on different things, you're leaving footprints, and you're leaving all sorts of information about yourself. And if you don't mind that, that's fine. If you are shocked that that's happening, I think that's the nature of the debate.
The question is still, what would you be worried about that somebody knew about you, in particular, if it came to political aspect?
I think that's inverting the question. I think the issue is not so much what are you worried about people knowing about you, but rather the other way of, what nefarious actions could people use by having access, to a vast database of
that's the question.
Behavioral and other traits.
That's the heart of my question too. Is I know people online and in my group that are like, you'll see one day you'll find out that all this is going to come back and haunt you, and I respond, okay, what's going to happen if I go through the rest of my life and die giving the internet my data? That's not, again, login information, financial information, things like that. That's not stolen. What's going to happen?
So I would like to answer that, but I'm going to let Jeff Gamet go because he has something to say, and we can get back to that more. And it's a fair point, because honestly, I used to think like you do, and I've completely changed my mind. MacVoices is supported by Smile, the makers of Text Expander, the most used utility on my Mac. I keep finding new uses for Text Expander. Text that I type repeatedly is a prime obvious candidate, but there are other things. Filling in a chat room name in a program that can't be saved, but that I use regularly. Even URLs of frequently used sites are a piece of cake with Text Expander and are often easier than using a bookmark. And that's just for me as an individual. If you have a team that offers support or interfaces with anyone outside your organization, or even just internal customers, Text Expander helps you keep responses consistent, concise, and easy to access by deploying them across your team. If you value accuracy, and who doesn't, and you find yourself regularly misspelling a word, a name, or something else, set up a Text Expander snippet to automatically correct it for you. Fill out forms, select responses to a query from a menu. The options go on and on. And if you want to get more out of Text Expander, be sure to head over to textexpander.com and watch for the notifications of webinars that are being offered regularly, not just to get you up and off the ground with Text Expander, but also to move you from beginner to intermediate to advanced. You should be using Text Expander, period. So do yourself a favor and visit smilesoftware.com/podcasts to pick up a demo of Text Expander and find out what I know and what so many productivity-oriented people know. The Text Expander is an essential utility for getting things done. That's Text Expander by Smile, the makers of world-class software. Find out more at smilesoftware.com/podcasts. Thanks to Smile for their ongoing support of MacVoices.
First off, Warren, that is the absolute best question to ask, because so many people are looking at the privacy thing as this nebulous monster out there. So before I jump into my take on that, I want to point out that Facebook's response to Apple's privacy policy changes underscores just how critical all of our personal data is to Facebook's bottom line. I mean, it's very clear from Mark Zuckerberg's response that we are a commodity product to sell. Now, Warren, my take on the whole, oh my gosh, they've got all of my data thing isn't so much about, do they know that I buy popcorn online on a regular basis. That in and of itself is nothing.
Useless. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a useless piece of data.
Amazon knows that. So, I mean, if you buy something from Amazon, they know too. So,
Right. And now when Facebook is collecting this data, the part that concerns me is that they have been able to collect so much data. It's practically insidious about the level of tracking that they do. Now, since I'm not breaking any laws, I'm not doing anything in and of itself that would warrant me freaking out about my data history. That part I don't worry about. What I worry about is what happens when you take this data en masse. Now you build a digital profile of me, and that digital profile becomes very valuable because that profile can be used for political manipulation. It can be used for market manipulation. And then when you take all of my data en masse and you clump it together with this data from all these other people, and at this point, your profile is not anonymous. I mean, Facebook, they know who I am. They absolutely know who I am, and they know what I'm interested in all the time. It's creepy, but at the same time, I agreed to their terms of service to have a Facebook account. But anyhow, when you take all of this data en masse, now it becomes a very powerful tool. And with great power comes great responsibility. And what we haven't seen from Facebook is the responsibility that goes along with the power.
I want to jump in here with three things real quick. First of all, I want to welcome Brittany Smith to the panel. Brittany, thanks so much for being here. Brittany. Good to have you as always.
Thank you.
A couple comments in the YouTube chat room. Paul says, quote, "They're stealing your information," unquote. Not sure I agree with exactly stealing, but they are appropriating it without full disclosure. Ooh. Kelly, I don't know. Your audio is weird there, Kelly. Jerry in the YouTube chat room says it's about transparency. Don't you want to know how they're using your data? And I think that's a very fair point. That, to Warren's question, what are you concerned about? Well, maybe I don't even know what question to ask because I don't know what they could be doing with my data. So maybe that's a question I should ask. To Jerry's point, what could you do? Guy, I see you shaking your hand unless you have a cramp.
I think it was a cramp. It was a cramp. Basically, it's not really important about what they know about individuals because individuals, for the most part, when it comes to the level of advertising and the level of delivering a message is not that important. It's how can you take groups of people and foment a message for them that is going to strike them on an emotional level and make them behave in a particular way that you want them to. And whether that's buying popcorn in Jeff's case, or voting for a particular candidate, or changing their opinions on, say, a water conservation bill or what have you. When you have the level of information that Google and Facebook have on us, you can craft a message. And I know this probably sounds like rampant paranoia, but you can craft a message that can hit people not just on the right side of the brain, but on the left side of the brain where that emotional little animal is that isn't as cognizant of the rules of engagement. So
who's doing that?
Whoever pays Facebook and Google to do that.
Advertisers. Right. So advertisers could.
No. This isn't about buying popcorn.
So you're saying like you could change opinions on major issues, political, and the water bill and things like that, the water company, but. Mark Zuckerberg's not at the other side of the keyboard typing this, on your wall. Where's it coming from? Who?
Whoever it is that wants to change people's opinions on measures of the
someone with an agenda, and it could be a person with a political agenda. It could be someone with a personal agenda.
Yeah, that's a one-to-one person, and they could be anywhere. As you like on Facebook when they said no more political stuff, where'd they go? To that other place that shut down.
I don't know.
So, but it's other people are doing that.
Okay, one at a time, guys. One at a time.
But advertisers, yes, I fully on board. Advertisers are targeting you through Facebook, but it's people are influencing each other with other issues, and that became a problem. But
you hit the word of it, because what I was trying to say was there's more. It's not it's advertisers, but you kind of have to quote it, and it's influence. What people are able to do is manipulate Facebook for influence, because if I have an agenda that I want to change people's minds about the water whatever the water conservation measure is, that's not necessarily political. That's just influence. I want to be able to buy ads for that person and do something because I have I have a deep vested interest in this particular water conservation thing.
I can't change what advertising you get.
But anybody can go buy ads on Facebook. That's what I mean. It's not just people who are buying ads on Facebook aren't necessarily buying ads in order to convince you to buy my thing, Warren. It's not just buy my thing, Warren. It's let me change your mind, not just let me sell you stuff. And it's that extra
don't see anything like that.
I don't like.
You wouldn't necessarily see it, Warren. That's the whole point, especially when you consider that there's tons of fake accounts on Facebook that can be used to put out, and it's the same thing on Twitter. It's the same thing on MeWe. It's the same thing on all these social platforms where you have fake accounts that are blasting out a particular message that somebody wants out there. And that message could be anything.
More comments from the chat room, and there's some good ones. My Tallest says, what if I start looking at a lot of sites about heart disease and that gets to my insurance company? Jerry in the chat room says it's about steering you in a direction without you realizing it. That might be one of the most intuitive comments that we've had right there.
100%. I mean, that's what happens.
David, I want to get you in too, because one of the things that Facebook has, one of their spins right now, and I think it's fair to call it spin, is that they're looking out for the small business guy, the guy who wants to buy the targeted ads so they can get to Warren. And there's plenty of small business people that will tell you that Facebook is very effective at doing that. My response is that, yeah, of course they are, because they know more about Warren. They know that he eats Cheerios instead of Fruit Loops for breakfast. Don't ask me how they know it, but sooner or later they figured it out. So they're going to, send him Cheerios-oriented ads or ads that have resonated with other Cheerios eaters. That's a really weird example, but you get the point.
Yeah, David, that's the weirdest Facebook ad I've ever seen is something for people who like Cheerios.
It's weird, but it makes all the sense in the world. I mean, this is not new. Advertisers have been trying to, figure out who their clientele are and who would be interested in them forever. They send, before the internet, they would send magazines or catalogs to your house because they think maybe you would like that. They might advertise in in a certain neighborhood that they think these people might enjoy my product. This is how they make money. The advertisers want to advertise to people who want to buy their stuff.
So I do have a couple more comments, and I hope these do tie into Warren's question. And this is where it gets more into the fight between Apple and Facebook. So in iOS 14, Apple introduced App Store privacy labels. And this is where developers are now required to say what kinds of data they are collecting and that may be shared with third parties. And there's this kind of joke that, well, it looks like Facebook just clicked that check all button because it's an endless list of data. But at least I think it's important that we do now have a little bit of information of what exactly they're collecting. And an upcoming privacy thing that will be included in iOS 14.5 is app tracking transparency. And I think this is what Facebook is so mad about, is that when an app wants to track you and collect your information for whatever reason, they have to ask you to do that. The system will give you a pop-up that says, this app wants to do so-and-so with your data. Do you want to allow that? And for me, at least personally, I am against this sort of thing because I just don't want my data to be used and collected by these parties without my consent. And like you said, Warren, some people are fine with getting advertising like that, and that's totally fine. But I think for me, at least, I think there should be more transparency about this is what we're collecting, this is who we're giving it to. Do you want to let them do this? Yes or no?
Oh, I'm totally cool with that. Yeah, I'm not arguing that. Yeah.
And I agree. I agree with that. I think we should have a choice. We should be able to have a choice of what we want and not want to be shared with people on Facebook. I mean,
it's not just Facebook though.
But Facebook though, Instagram. Facebook owns Instagram. That happens on there too. I mean, we haven't really talked about Amazon much. Amazon is a little bit like that. I mean, with the Amazon Echo, that they have that ecosystem. They find out about things all the time with that. I mean, it's kind of scary sometimes. So I mean, all these companies have to do a much better job of being transparent and telling us, okay, this is what we're sharing, and let us know. Facebook doesn't do that. Facebook is now that 14.5 was just released in beta. I mean, I think that's why this is all coming up to a head now, because of the fact that it's going to be going live here very, very soon, and Facebook wants to do something about it. And I don't think they're going to be able to do anything about it, because Apple is really looking out for the folks that want to have the right to have their privacy if they want to. And on Warren's point about, who cares what they have, and that's great. You have that attitude, and I'm kind of in that boat a little bit too. I'm not really too worried about what's being shared for me, but we still should have the right to not allow it if we so choose.
Jim, you haven't had a say, and I want to make sure you get in, because as somebody who manipulates data for a living through your database, you have to have an opinion on this.
Well, I don't know about because of that, and a little bit. This is really interesting conversation. The only thing I've actually used Facebook for in the last 5 years is getting links for MacVoices meetings. So I get on, get the link, and get off. So I guess I'm kind of leery. And Warren's comments are question is really interesting. This made me think. Although I kind of I'm looking at it and it's like it's very clear that Facebook doesn't want us to know what information it has and what it's collecting. And since it so badly doesn't want us to know, that tells me that they think we would be really unhappy if we did know. And so to me, that's sort of the answer to Warren's question as well. Facebook is just desperately, we don't want you to know. And so I think, man, even if I don't know what the bad thing is, clearly Facebook thinks it's bad, and that I would be displeased if I had that information. So, I would stay off. Ironically though, I use Gmail. So,
who does?
Well,
most of us do.
Well, I know people that are like, "Oh God, no, that's terrible." You can't use Gmail. So,
well, let me point out.
Qualitatively, do you think there's a difference, Jim, between what Facebook and Google are doing in terms of collecting and how they use their data?
I don't really have a way to know. And, I started using Gmail like a long time ago, like 10 years ago, and Adam Engst wrote a really interesting series of articles about how he used Gmail, and I was like, wow, that sounds like just what I needed. And it has been great, but it does concern me, and I think it's the same, like a lot of people have been on Facebook for a long time, and they're like, how would I deal without it? And, I understand that. And, and probably, most of us individually, we don't have, critical, and I would think the one thing is that, Facebook knows about relationships between people and who knows who and in what way. And that seems something that's, potentially, and it's not just Facebook. It's like that information has it, and who knows, what, Mark Zuckerberg might not always be the controller of that or the ultimate authority. The fact that information exists, we can't just say, oh, well, what's Mark Zuckerberg? But he could be compelled to do things.
Tim Cook could do the same thing. I mean,
right.
Well, any company could do that.
Anybody could. Kelly,
yeah. Well, you're up. What I wanted to follow on was David pointed out the Echo ecosystem from Amazon, but I even feel like Amazon is different because Amazon's not selling that data to other people. Amazon is collecting that data for themselves because Amazon wants to be able to sell you better stuff. So Amazon locks down all their customer information. Amazon makes very sure that at least everything that I can find, it's very buckled up. It's very low key. And part of the reason for that is because they want that data for themselves so that they can sell to you effectively. So if for a while I got the deal of the day emails from Amazon, and if I went and looked something up on Amazon, the next day or two, that same sort of thing would show up as one of the deals because there's so much stuff on deal on Amazon on any day. And so if I go look up doorstops or something, then a day or two later, I'm going to get a 3-pack of doorstops from Amazon, on sale so that I will go buy more stuff from Amazon. So Amazon feels very transparent to me and very transactional. Amazon wants my information so that they can do better about getting more money from me. So I give them information, I give them money and they give me stuff. And if I also give them information, they can direct me more accurately to the stuff that they have. And that feels like a relationship that makes sense to me. And
manipulation.
Well, yeah, but giving all that data to Facebook so Facebook can go something and maybe then they make money, but I'm not part of that. And that part feels weird. That's what it comes down to. It's I don't understand my relationship with Facebook in that transaction. And it's a transaction, but I'm not really part of the benefit of that. I get no benefit from it. It's all, into the black hole of Facebook data, but I don't get anything
Facebook.
Back out of it again. Yeah,
that's your benefit. Yeah.
Yay.
Folks, our discussion of privacy, advertising, social media, and the implications surrounding all of it continues in the next edition of MacVoices. The panel is absolutely passionate from start to finish on this topic, and I think you're going to find all of it very, very interesting. That's next time on MacVoices. Until then, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.